Now Facebook's just starting to tick me off. They here. Okay, it's midnight here. You don't know what it is there. Not watching this live. Otherwise, you've been able to figure out where on earth is Doc, zone wise. But in my undisclosed mountain lair, you don't know I might have a teleporter to the other coast or coasts abroad. Yeah, we've been talking about Japan. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back on, even though Facebook's technology kicked me off. It's probably my connection. I haven't blamed Zuckerberg. The guy owes me $20. So, um, I'm joking. Never met him before in my life. Thank goodness. How would I? He's probably surrounded by an entourage of people. But we were talking about draconian laws in Japan, and this kind of impassions me because I consider all pot smokers to be my brothers and sisters at some level. I know that at least we have that much in common. We might disagree on everything else, but I know at least we can smoke a bowl together, even digitally, virtually. And that's what it's come down to. I was reading a story the other day about how virtual smoke sessions are kind of a thing. And that's a good thing. Check in with your friends, the ones that you haven't heard from in a while. This makes with people's mental health. And we even have to be careful with our brothers and sisters who have gotten COVID-19, gotten over it, and continue to go on because this thing has deleterious effects. That's the second time I used deleterious. Third, Doc likes the word. So I got to keep my eye on the Facebook feed, make sure they don't nip me off again. So I'm done with Japan. Lighten your load. Your people deserve weed. All people deserve weed. So that's personally where I stand. The article to go on to say how can the panel address the problem? The problem will still discuss possible revisions to the current anti-cannabis law, with an emphasis on whether the act of smoking weed should be criminalized. It is expected to compile a report by the end of July. The law currently prohibits, among other things, the import, export, cultivation, and possession of parts of the cannabis plant where an intoxicating chemical called tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, is concentrated, including resin, leaves, and buds. Well, I got news for you guys. That resin, leaves, and buds doesn't have any tetrahydrocannabinol. Guess what? It has delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol A, dash A, for an acid chain there on the end. Did you know weed's not even, it won't make you high if you ate it? That's why. Because it actually has to go through a chemical change, which it does when you smoke it through the heat, where it drops that acid chain off the end of THC. And the same is true with CBD and probably every other cannabinoid out there. They actually have these little acid chains. So that plant doesn't have any tetrahydrocannabinol, except in its acid form. Far out, man. Acid. You said acid. The law, however, in Japan, doesn't criminalize the actual ingestion of cannabis. What? That's kind of like DC stupid. Authorities think this is instilled in the public, especially among youths, the confidence that they can smoke pot with impunity, in part encouraging their abuse. I love this newspaper. Why is there no punishment for smoking marijuana already? Yes, citizens, we are standing up for what the government wants. Why? Let's see how the Japanese rationalize it. The reason has to do with Japan's peculiar history with cannabis. Oh, good. I love history. From ancient times, the plant, and that's true. One of the oldest, like cave paintings of cannabis, I believe, is in Japan, and it has to do with medicinal. Might be China. From ancient times, the plant had been grown for its fibers to be woven into clothing, fishing equipment, and sacred ropes. Ooh, cool. Sacred ropes. Like magic ropes in Japan. Sacred ropes known as shimenawa, used in Shinto shrines for purification. That sounds very complex. I got news for you folks. When that plant flowered and they got bud, and it does, that's what plants do. That's how it makes seeds. That's kind of the whole circle of life. Japan, why are you guys being so freaking rigid? For once, go with the rest of the world. Don't declare war on cannabis. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's the Japanese anti-drug campaign. I love it. It's not quite as stupid as your brain on drugs, but turned off, so I want to get the last of it. I feel like a balloon filling up. Whee! Mental note, don't say we on the air. So, yeah, why is there no punishment for smoking marijuana already? Okay, Shimenawa ropes used in Shinto shrines. So, the we'd make ceremonial sacred ropes. You got reason to keep it around right there. It wasn't until after the end of World War II, during the Allied occupation, that the U.S. General Headquarters ordered an all-out ban on the cultivation of cannabis, including hemp, as part of a broader campaign against narcotics. In 1948, however, the Japanese government enacted the Cannabis Control Law to pave the way for the licensed cultivation of cannabis to keep the hemp industry home to close to 25,000 growers back then from going extinct. So they were trying to keep the cannabis industry, which was down to 25,000 growers. Lore has it, they actually used the word lore in a news article, and that's beautiful. What a wonderful use of the word. I'm going to have to read out this author's name at the end. You can tell it is definitely for a Japanese audience or written from a Japanese perspective, and especially somebody mindful and respectful of the government since they work for the Japan Times. I'm sure it's a good paying job there in Japan where you don't have to work in a car factory or making some kind of electronics all day. So yeah, not till the end of World War II that they started coming down on weed. Gosh, where does that sound familiar? We started coming down on weed before it was cool. That's right. America started coming down on weed back in the 30s when people were coming out of a depression. Shame on you for using a free legal substance. How do you expect to get out of this depression doing narcotics? Narcotics. Does weed really fall under narcotic? I mean, it's such a mild narcotic if it is. I mean, I think I've had a bigger buzz off Actifed, for Christ's sakes. That's not to say I haven't gotten plenty loaded off weed. I'm just, it's a matter of perspective. It's so funny how people had such a hard-on for weed, making it illegal. And in America, they used, Mexicans and black people as excuses, these old white men in Congress, to pass these draconian laws that labeled the entire plant illegal, which is just beautiful. How can you make a plant illegal? Bad plant! Stop growing! Glad I had the nap this afternoon. So it wasn't until after the end of World War II, 1948, they did the cannabis control to save it from going extinct. Lore has it, we're back to lore. Lore has it that in enacting the law, legislators were concerned about the possibility of farmers mistakenly inhaling psychoactive substances of the crop during the cultivation process. Hey, morons, did you hear me? Do they burn it down? I mean, if you guys burn your crops when you're harvesting in Japan, okay, then I stand corrected. But otherwise, it learn something. See, this is why we don't know enough about weed because we've been burying our heads in the sand about it. It's poetic in its tragedy like monolithic ineptness that has stalled humanity from being able to benefit from a plant that's obviously there for them. Where was I? Lore has it that enacting the law, legislators were concerned about the possibilities of farmers mistakenly inhaling psychoactive substances during the cultivation. And it was arrest. Marijuana wasn't criminalized, or so the for the farmers. Good. We are. This is Doc Beanz. I don't say my name enough, and I don't care. This isn't a professional podcast. I do this for you guys because I love you. Most people don't really follow weed. And who knew what a giant stick the Japanese have up their ass? Too bad it wasn't a stalk of weed. Maybe the acid in their bodies would, slowly churn that THCA and turn it into THC. That isn't how it really works, though. It really does need the heat or some other method to make that chemical change. It's not hard. I mean, we do it when we smoke weed. Cavemen were doing it before they knew what math was. But they were smoking weed, I guarantee it. And so were your Japanese farmers when you weren't looking. Stick up your ass, Japanese ministry. Jesus. They're Shintoists, I think, mostly over there, so they don't believe in Jesus, which is good because I was using it in a profane way, and I will probably have to smoke a turd in hell for that. But back to the Japanese and how uptight they are. So it wasn't criminalized for the farmers. Today, hemp farmers are strictly controlled and number nowhere near as many as before, totaling just 37 across the nation in 2016, according to health ministry figures. I thought I caught a typo there for a second, but I didn't. This guy's good. Guy or gal, or guy gals, or, guy slash gals, gals slash guys. How harmful is marijuana? Question mark. Oh, this ought to be good. Times we're going to find out here in America just how harmful is marijuana. This is one of the questions that the panel spent most time grappling with at its first session Wednesday, which media could observe on condition that speakers were kept anonymous. Fantastic. It is often said that marijuana serves as a, quote, gateway to other more pernicious drugs. He used the word pernicious, or she did. This is starting to sound like a woman, although, just a wonderful, lovely use of language is probably more predominantly used by women writers, I would imagine. Us men writers, we cavemen, we barely write our names in the grounds with sticks, But wonderful use of the word. Detrimental, wonderful vocabulary. But I got news for you. I'm stoned as fuck, and I know a lot more better words than that. It is a wonderful use, though. So It's often said it's a gateway to other more pernicious things. Pernicious. Your limited perspicacity amazes me. Japanese government with your stick up your ass. And no, that wasn't a compliment. Your perspicacity, limited as it is showing. Ooh, they actually list some of these gateway drugs to other more pernicious drugs, such as cacazuazi, seizai, I think, kakusezai, or stimulants, kakusezai. Boy, that is an awful lot of words. Of course, if you're taking stimulants, you could probably say that real fast. Kakusezai. Oh, kakusezai. Give me some more kakusezai. The health ministry, too, warns that its website that THC diminishes one's memory functions. What? I forgot what they were saying. Diminishes one's memory functions. But beyond that, the nation dealing with far fewer marijuana than some other countries. Yes, shame on us. There's little scientific evidence at home of how detrimental or addictive marijuana can truly be. All pointed out. Well, good. Fortunately, members of this panel. For the Japanese ministry. That would be really painful. Here's your chair. Welcome. One psychiatrist in attendance said of only a few domestic cases in which marijuana use triggered mental illness. Only a few. Triggered mental illness. Actually, a link between psychosis and but relationship, and it's real easy to argue fallaciously. Weed caused that. It may have exacerbated it. I don't think they were going to be mentally ill anyhow. That's kind of how genetics work. At a certain point, they kick in. As it was kicking in, they may or may not have started smoking weed then to try and see if they could find a natural alternative to the voices in their head. That some people are afflicted with things you're not. For example, I don't have a stick up my ass, so I don't know what I'm missing out on. Japan. I can't believe that. One psychiatrist said he's aware of only a few domestic cases where pot made somebody go crazy, while a representative from a rehabilitation center for drug addicts, oh, this should be good, similarly noted that close to 0 patients ever came knocking on his door due purely to their addiction to marijuana. Okay, fact, truth. And once again, it is going to be hard to find somebody who's just, I guess, a kid or something when they first start smoking. When I first started smoking weed, no, I guess I was already drinking by then. It's alcohol that's the gateway, morons. No one wants to call it for what it is. The one thing I will tell you about Doc is I was born in Missouri, the show me state, where we must have things kind of proven to us. That's bullshit. Alcohol is the fucking gateway. No, I mean, weed's been around to counterbalance the effects of alcohol, which is a, highly processed substance, as opposed to weed, which is a plant that grows in the ground. You snip it, hang it upside down, dry it until it's a nice smoke. That's what life's about, baby. We're getting too far away from being humans. If people want to smoke, let them smoke. We've been smoking since the dawn of time. Don't come down on them. I can see as a public health crisis when cigarette companies are keeping it under the table how frightening the effects of smoking can be on people. Over the course of time, it causes horrible conditions, emphysema, cancer, you name it. It's not a good thing. But had we actually been able to approach cannabis logically, cannabis does not have the same rates of deleterious effects. Like the fifth time I've used that tonight. Sounds like that's the only big word I know. Astounding effects that weed can have. But I get a little beyond myself. And if you think that weed is making me drift all over the place, that's not true. I had ADD before I started smoking weed. It's probably why I started smoking weed. To help my brain chill a little bit and focus and concentrate on one thing at a time. But Doc likes to do that. That's what Doc does. I'm a news writer, baby. It's different from 1 hour to the next. You know, I can be hammering out an ad for horse farms 1 minute or talking about the fact that they found out that cannabis cures gonorrhea. Bad plant. How dare you hurt that gonorrhea? If you have gonorrhea, don't go slathering yourself up. They say it takes a specific method. Although, you know what? CBD ain't going to probably hurt you. Talk to your doctor, obviously. I'm not your doctor, so I'm not advising you. I'm just talking and giving you my thoughts at the moment. So you can't blame it on me. No, but nothing else. Imagine having to deal with an affliction and people of prohibition. You know, I'm really kind of getting sick and tired of politicians telling us what we can and can't do. You know what? We tell you what we can and can't vote. What is playing here? Somehow I got a podcast playing. That ain't good. I don't want someone talking under me. Let's hear what's going on here. Oh, Leon Redbone. Anyone else know Leon? And that's a beautiful song to be playing underneath my Weed World News. Doc Beanz, Weed World News. Taking a moment to drift down a lazy river with Leon Redbone. Rest in peace. Up lazy river. It was great. I love Redbone. I wonder if I read the news like Leon Redbone. One psychiatrist in his opinion said he was aware of only a few domestic cases in which marijuana alone triggered mental illness. Leon Redbone bringing you the news. While a representative from a rehabilitation center for drug addicts noted close to zero. Not zero, close to zero people. What is a close to zero person? That would make another great t-shirt. Close to zero. I am close to zero when I smoke weed. No, man. And that's another reason why people smoke cigarettes, and people don't understand that. It's like a 5-minute break, okay, from the world. Number one, you all kinds of cells. And I'll bet you the same is true when you smoke weed, now that you mention it, when you combust weed. But now if you vaporize, what about it then? That's an interesting question. I don't know if it would have the same kind of... Seventh time. It's the only word I know. I need some doctors to give me some of their favorite words for entropy. Crap falling apart naturally the way it's supposed to fall apart, and sometimes we accelerate it by taking drugs or drinking too much coffee, driving too fast, standing too close to somebody with COVID, next to some maskless idiot when you're out in public, breathing in a pandemic, as huffing and puffing as you can. You know, I got my second win. Doc, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like the grocery store. I go in there for bread and I come out with like 75 bucks worth of crap. I cannot leave the store without spending 75 bucks. Where was I? Facebook live feed. You know, I've got like 8 stories open too, but this story about Japan is really getting to me. So this is going to be my story tonight. And one of the things I keep harping on, pray for our brothers and sisters in Japan who have to hide in the shadows to consume weed. Fortunately, edibles have gotten to be a thing. Vapes have gotten to be a thing, and they're very hard to detect. They don't even talk about vapes in this thing. They don't talk about how kids are consuming cannabis. And they don't talk about how they bust them. So that would be interesting to know. Excuse me. Happened to my water. So, you know, the newscast is going to end soon. I am out of liquid. Let's see. Beyond that, the nation dealing with fewer marijuana abusers than us naughty countries. Psychiatrists swear that there's only a few cases of people going nuts and close to 0 patients banging down the doors because they're so sinfully ashamed of their weed use, and it's making them think crazy thoughts and giggle way too much. And then they go on to quote, if we want to rectify the rampant abuse of marijuana among young people, this panel going forward needs to be able to present a more convincing data-based argument to society about how harmful and terrifying marijuana is, another member pointed out. Okay, this writers is interesting. I mean, they are following all the rules and they're making sure that they're taking kind of a ministry standpoint. This is starting to sound like a Harry Potter novel. Is Voldemort running Japan? Is that why you can't smoke weed? Because that's evil, man. That's evil. Japan Ministry. Ministry of Japan. I don't know what it's called. I don't care either. All I know is you're saying absolutely not to something that grows naturally in the ground and is beneficial to mankind. Your own body produces cannabinoids. But yeah, this writer's interesting. He's following all the rules. He's taking a ministry standpoint, but by the same token, the way that he kept that quote to the end is kind of letting you know, jab, jab, hey, you got nothing. Spend all creating all the panels you want, but ultimately, unless you make up bullshit numbers, you got nothing. So what other topics will that panel discuss there in the uptight, stick-up-your-ass region of Japan in the ministry? Another possible area of focus for the panel is whether to relax a ban on medical marijuana. Oh, they finally mention it. Currently, the anti-cannabis law prohibits both doctors and patients from using medications manufactured from marijuana. Hey, guess what? You don't even really have to manufacture it. I mean, you can. It works wonderfully when you brew it in an oil or, even just bake with it straight up. Some people like that flavor. So it doesn't even really need to be processed. So, no manufacturing really going on a whole lot on an individual level. But given the recent advent overseas of marijuana-derived drugs such as Epidiolex, that's the artificial CBD, approved in 2018 by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and it's nowhere as efficacious as just regular CBD that you can buy in a shop. You know, this Epidiolex is a pharmacology land grab trying to take high roads, and they're probably the ones that are trying to ram through legislation that says, hey, no natural plant matter. You must take this pill. You must breathe this spray. Screw you. People, if we rose in mass, all the governments in the world could combine themselves. They would have to, like a transformer. They'd have to come together, like multi-transformers, to stop us, you know? Because we're billions. Billions, and probably a billion more of people that are just cooperative and friendly towards weed. But pot smokers have got to be in the billions. Okay, sound off. I'll be one. Who wants to be number two? Let's start counting this down. Let's see how many billions of people we got. I'm number one. Doc Beanz is number one, and I don't mean that in a USA kind of way. I'm just first. I am first. Maybe I'll put it that way. I'm Doc's number one. Given the recent advent overseas, Epidiolex approved in 2018 by the FDA for treatment of epileptic seizures, but still banned in Japan. You must. The health ministry recognizes the need to properly respond, quote, end quote, to such cutting-edge medical technologies, an official said during Wednesday's meeting. Are you kidding me? Cutting-edge technologies. Is that really the only way, you rigid, stiff-ass? Are you guys still wearing ties in Japan? I don't... who wears a tie anymore? I mean, plenty of people do, lawyers and such, people going into court. Um, um, but not Doc. Not unless I have to. I mean, I got tons of ties. I like wearing ties in the proper occasion. But you know what? There's no proper occasion anymore, especially now that I'm home based, baby. I'm home based throughout the pandemic and probably beyond. I mean, it's just kind of reaching that point in my career where I got to do it that way. I appreciate you being with me, listening to me. I've been going on forever. No one's probably going to watch anything. They're going to say, Jesus, who goes on live for an hour and a half? When you combine it all, it's only been about an hour. This story has worn me out. Pray for our Japanese brothers and sisters. Pray a tidal soon comes sweeping across Japan and wiping out all the stiff asses that feel they have the right to tell other people what to do with their lives. Go F yourself. Okay? This is Doc Beanz. High AF. And I'm really not all that high AF. Doc doesn't really do high AF anymore. Don't need to. I've been high AF. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. I'm trying to catch Willie Nelson. I can see him. He's in my sights. Hey, Willie, let me know if you want to do an interview with Beanz. A smoke down, a virtual smoke sesh. That would be great. I love it. I love America. I love brothers and sisters around the world smoking weed. I love weed. I love learning all about it. This is Doc Beanz. I am a writer and journalist myself. That's right. I said I would mention who wrote this. I'll bet you in Japan Times they don't even give a byline. No, that's wrong. Let me zoom in. It's like microfiche. Tomohiro Osaki, staff writer of the Japan Times. Tomohiro, well written. I appreciate that point of view, man. I like to bring the news to people, and I like to, share what's happening. I was going to talk about in California, even CBD products must now warn consumers about THC. It just cracks me up. I posted that on my feed. Only in America. You must say what it doesn't have. I mean, a lot of people say zero THC anyhow, or less than 1% THC. I mean, that is the legal standard by which people can grow hemp in this country, is that it must have virtually zero THC. You know what? You can't take it all the way out. You know why? Because cannabis has 100+ cannabinoids. They compact in this wonderful plant. Each one of those cannabinoids has a specific interaction with CB cells in your body. It's kind of funny. We say that there's two different kinds of CB cells, cannabinoid receptor cells in your body, CB1 and CB2. CB2 cells are the ones that CBD clings to, supposedly, because that's the way it fits. I shouldn't say supposedly, I'm a doc. That's the way it fits. And they're found primarily in the immune system. But you know what? CBD does affect the mind. There's CB2 cells in the mind too. And CB1 cells basically affect everywhere else, including the mind. And that's where THC goes, and that's why you get high. And that's why you don't get high when you consume CBD. Of course, once again, CBD was grown without THC, so you wouldn't know that. This thing called the entourage effect when it comes to weed. And all those 100+ cannabinoids have a little party in your body. They all go in. They've got wingmen. They out. They help each other balance in your body. It's called homeostasis. And that's actually what your endocannabinoid system does in your body. It keeps things balanced. It affects whole body systems, your nervous system, your skeletal system, your skin, which is the largest organ in your body. It affects every organ. That's what I was getting around to. There's two types of cannabinoid receptors in your body. Yeah, guess what? It's called every cell in your body has cannabinoid receptors. It's either a CB1 or a CB2 receptor. It affects virtually every cell in your body. How can you not get it that cannabis is here for a reason to be used? You've had a stick up your ass and your head in the sand, which is an interesting image, for more than 50 years. Okay? Shit changes. We learn more. You could not keep cannabis out of the picture. You eventually had to start giving it to us because we were starting to get this internet thing where we could stand up and say, oh, you smoke weed too? And guess what? We're going to learn that we're more than 1 billion if we all get together and party. I'm number one. I'm first. Tell me what number you are. I'd love to hear it in the comments. This is Doc Beanz. I don't say my name enough. Actually, I probably say it too much. Just going through the weed headlines, we did a whole long-ass story on how hardcore the Japanese ministry, who's run by Voldemort, I believe, is against cannabis. And they say there's like 1.8% use cannabis in Japan. I got news for you. That's like Vladimir Putin saying, I got 99% of vote. I win. Again, I'd like to thank family. I got to go. Doc Beanz. Have a good night, y'all. Peace. Take care of each other.